Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Groyper Report. Tonight, we have some groundbreaking news to share with you.
Welcome to the Groyper Report. Introducing the most racist men alive. They are shutting it down as we speak. Welcome to the Groyper Report. Sexist. Racist. Phobic this, phobic that. Terrorizing women across the country. Telling them to wear clothes. Saying all women are mid. Minorities fear them. The president has them on speed dial.
Guess what? Your body, my choice.
Brought to you by Frog Aura Maxing. Brought to you by Frog. Giga Chat Central, yes, thank you for asking. They all must go. Welcome to the one and only. Defending the last white men on Earth. AtlasThugged and Josh Van Der Nord. This is the Groyper Report.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into another edition of the Groyper Report. I think we missed last week, but we're back in action this week. Unfortunately, though, Josh will not be joining me, but I am your host, AtlasThugged, a.k.a. Aaron Shepard, a.k.a. another racially ambiguous Groyper. Seems to be arguments on that. But joining me, actually, is a big fan of the show. Let me bring him in here. Mr. Zeb Boykin. How are we doing today?
Hey, I appreciate you. I appreciate you for having me, man. You know, I'm filling in for Josh today. I'm gonna do as much Groyper justice today as I can. Hopefully, it's not too topically on the side that I disagree with. I just want to lay the groundwork real quick. Obviously, some people know that, I have my major disagreements with Groypers in general, and obviously Nick. But the conversation today, I think, is very, very topical for what's going on in the world, and I think we might have some agreement. So I'm gonna try to do a little bit of Groyper reporting tonight. Perfect.
We love that. And it was kind of surprising to me because I reached out into the NAV channel and I was like, hey, Josh told me last minute no one could show up. So I was surprised that you wanted to join. No, actually, the real story is when we had our discussion the other day, you were like, you know what? I'm a Groyper again. You're right. And I won you over. And now you took back your spot on the Groyper Report. That's the real story here.
Atlas trying to take aura away from me. That's what's happening right here.
That's funny.
Before we even start the show, just aura fraud me. What is it? Aura. What's it called? Not Max and the other one.
Morgan. Or Morgan.
No. Or
I'm a boomer, so I don't get these terms as much as I used to.
Not me neither, but let's do it, dude.
But we have a lot to get into. Aura Farm, that's right. Aura Farm, that's the one.
There you go.
Yes, I do it so naturally I forget what the words are called, actually. But no, we have a good week to get into. That's kind of the gist of what we're going to be opening up with, actually, is this kind of looks maxing, the aura farming, this new wave of this kind of revitalization of men in the country, many of which older right-wingers seem to heavily disagree with. I think we've seen a lot of kind of negative reactions from the older crowd on the right wing. The younger crowd's full sending it, and I'm here for it. I like a lot of what we're getting out of it. And I think to kind of put a pin in it, really, I think Nick said it best on air. This is the answer to feminism. This is the answer to the rampant kind of hypergamy in the latter ends of what it means to be a liberal, individualistic society that empowers women. And ultimately, I think what you're seeing is the beginning of the response from men, which is the looks maxing, or finding a way to get out and above. And I think Collicular is the singular answer to that. But I think starting off, the first clip I want to go to, this one's brutal, and I just want to know what Zeb's kind of reaction is to it. This was the saddest clip I think I've ever seen, and maybe in my entire life. But this was on Valentine's Day, or actually, forgive me, 18 minutes after Valentine's Day, when Clavicular took a man's girl. So here's the first clip we have for you, and I really just want to see what Zeb's reaction to this is going to be. So here we go.
I don't know if you want.
Yeah. What, bro? You can't steal my girl, bro. It's Valentine's Day, bro. You can't steal my girl. past Valentine's Day was
No, but
yesterday.
like the kindness of your heart, bro. Come on. You're a good guy. I know you're a good guy.
Brother, 18 minutes ago, Valentine's Day ended, so you're gonna have to buckle up.
I'm good. Bro, come, dude, 1 year, bro.
Why is this guy begging me?
Come on, man. 1 year.
That's literally the lamest shit ever. I know, I am.
1 year,
That's pretty lame. So lame. Bro, that's why I like.
So that's the clip in a nutshell. This was what basically started the week for most people, happening over the weekend. And I think for most men, what I really want them to take away from it is we're not going to revel in this guy's kind of pain, but don't let this be you. So if anything, absorb this and don't take your girlfriend out on Valentine's Day to your local bar in Miami, because this will more than likely happen to you as well. So that would be my response. But what was your reaction when you saw this, Zeb?
I mean, my reaction was, I mean, it's very, very, very poor acting, to be honest with you. It does look staged, but let's set that aside. I mean, this is, I would say that this isn't anything new. I mean, this has been happening for a very, very long time. I mean, since prior to the 90s, prior to the 60s. I mean, take it back as far as you want to. This is just, this is the inevitability of human nature, especially in a extremely high social area. Which is, I guess, Miami at this point. But, like I said, this is nothing new. That's just the way the world works. And the problem is now that these areas, right, this clubbing scene in Miami is now just worldwide. And so you can't escape the nature that comes with the mass social aspects of essentially climbing the ladder, however that goes for both genders.
Yeah, well, I guess to zoom out a little bit, what's your position on looks maxing? Like, how do you feel about the overall kind of just sentiment?
Yeah, man. I mean, I guess this is going to be a much longer conversation, but I've said for a very, very long time, maybe not so much recently, but I've said for a very long time that there is no real privilege in the world, and if there is, it is attractive privilege, and so. If you're going to try and get ahead in life, it's not to go bleach your skin or darken your skin, go straight up wear blackface or get super skinny or get fat or whatever. It is just essentially an aura thing where you want to be as attractive as you can without becoming I guess narcissistic is the word that most people are looking for.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, there's a little bit of a fine line, and so some people are going to notice that. I mean, that being said, I mean, my position is, I've been, I have a foundation of lifting weights and trying to get in as best shape as I could. Most of the time it has been for functionality, whether that was sports, football, in high school, college, and then in the Marine Corps for functionality. But, it all kind of blends itself together. And I said on stream the other day, I was talking about how these, specifically the Tates, Myron, Clav, Nick, all these streamer guys, they are the new, or the beautiful ones in the rat experiment. Yep. And I think Prosopa Insights actually did a video on it not long after I mentioned that. So maybe you watch his streams.
Interesting. Yeah, Prosopa, we love Prosopa here, and that was kind of my background too. The foundation of just being functionally stronger, right? My introduction into it was like from football, we're going 6 a.m., we're lifting beforehand. And I think for me, I was a personal trainer, and that would have been around 2017, 2018, 2019 in that era. And I was obviously into fitness before that, but even I watched as it went from strength training to bodybuilding. And there was like this kind of big change where men were less concerned with what we had just talked about, this kind of functional strength, the purposeful strength, but wanted to actually lift to aesthetically build. And that was kind of where we used to be, right? This is more so like the soul bra, the aesthetic crowd. Now it's moved full blown into looks maxing. And I think it's because the aesthetic element has now left the weight room. Now the aesthetic element is like everything else you can do, even outside of the gym, that can benefit you. And whether you think it's science or not, hammering your face, all these different techniques.
Yeah, I think it's been like that for a little while, but it's just become more efficient, if you will. And that's just the nature of everything, right? I mean, you look at basketball and you look at, I don't know, the shot placement for the most made shots or most shots rather. It all ends up becoming in, you know, in 80s and 90s, it was all over the place. Now it's either threes or it's dunks. Like there's no in between. And the same thing can go for, you know, this here. It's like, you know, the guys back in the day, right? They were bodybuilding. They were trying to get big. You can call up like Tom Platz and even go back to Colombo and some of those guys where they wanted to hold the aesthetics. And then it, you know, after Ronnie and Dorian Yates, where it was just, they were mass monsters. At that point, it was like, just get big as possible. But even built into the mass monsters, right? They wanted that somewhat aesthetic. At the end of the day, they were putting on spray tans and trying to look good a little bit to at least on stage, you know, behind the scenes, not so much. And as we were talking earlier today, the bodybuilding scene, I guess, kind of blends all this together, where you have people like David Lade and Z's and some of these other guys that are extreme aesthetic guys, kind of blend in that scene. But yeah, to your point, we don't see the bone smashing because it wasn't like a thing really, or at least I didn't know anything about it. But people were still taking peptides, people were still on GAs, people were still on low dose roids, tests, HGH, D-ball,
all of them.
And even there was a massive wave of SARMs like 8 years ago. Right. I don't know if you remember that.
Well, yeah, I took them. I couldn't even finish a cycle. I was getting the when it oranges out your eyes, which is like lets you know your liver.
Oh, really?
Yeah, your liver's like over functioning. As soon as I got the sunset eyes, I was done. I'm like, my cycle's over with SARMs. But I like what you said about the getting convenient, right? The min maxing of everything. You mentioned basketball with the threes. I think you can also see this in like the NCAA element. And it's more so maybe like taking the honor out of it, which is like, it used to be honorable to go play college football. You're playing for your team. But at a certain point, the dollars just weighed in too much. The players couldn't ignore how much they were being profited off of without getting any money. And I think maybe part of it's the internet. Just everything's a lot more known, a lot more accessible. There's more transparency just in general, even though it doesn't feel like that at times. And that's kind of the direction it's moved, which is this kind of very bleak outlook on things where for men and like the guys in the Looks Maxer community, it's like, there's no point in being average. Like, it's like, you know, being average to them is like, you might as well die, right? So you might as well just be dead.
I guess we could call it back to like creatine. Like, is it worth it to take creatine? Most people say yes. Some people say no. I would argue no. But when your margins are, I mean, you're playing at Clavs level or the ASU frat guys level, or, you know, wig got pulled off guys here. Whatever what's his name? What did you say his name was?
It's like androgenic, I think.
Yeah. When you're playing at that levels, I mean, yeah, the minute things do matter, and so it just becomes an efficiency thing to extract everything that you can out of it.
Yeah, and I would say like this is kind of like, to me, this feels like Andrew Tate 2.0 again, where I think everybody watching it, they go, it's moving the needle actually in a better direction than where it has been, but it's surrounded by a bunch of things that you ultimately wouldn't tell your kids to do either. You know, like you wouldn't tell your kids, you know, take this, you know, put the peptide in right above your cheekbone and fill it like 3 different times a week. But you would tell your son, you need to be going to the gym. You need to be concerned about your diet. You need to be doing these things. You need to be working on yourself. And this is kind of a good kind of, and again, answer to this kind of liberal feminism, this extreme hypergamy. And so with that, I guess we'll move on to where Nick is at with it, because Nick has obviously been pushing clavicular quite a lot. And so I think what I'm going to go into is Nick kind of explaining what he believes is to be the significance of look maxing. So here's the second clip here.
In our society is just looking good, well, then everybody should devote all their resources to grooming themselves. Everybody should devote their time, energy, and resources to vanity, grooming themselves, this sort of thing. And clavicular's taken that to the logical conclusion, the logical extreme, and now the world is his oyster. And it's sort of funny how now people are looking at this and they're sort of laughing at it, and people are sort of deeply concerned about it. You know what's interesting, though? Nobody was concerned about it 10 years ago. When the lookism ideology came on the scene, it existed in internet subcultures of sexually unsuccessful losers. It was incels. It was ugly men. It was the uglier races. It was broke losers, bald men, fat men, retards, autists on forums reporting their experiences and saying, like, this is the new law of the jungle. This is the way of the world. In other words, when women were in control of this arrangement, when women were brutal, turning men down, rejecting men, doing all this kind of stuff, it was a big joke, right? If you were on the forums talking about how looks are the only thing that matter and we should invest in grooming and people were trying game, pickup artistry, that sort of thing, well, they were a laughingstock. They were losers. That was for idiots. That was for people that aren't normal. And yet it was still a very brutal situation where women were extracting resources. Women were going for the 10%. They were engaging in hypergamous behavior. 10 years later, now it's sort of like men are catching up in a way. It's like Clav is the revenge of the men. Okay, we want to play the lookism game. Well, what if we use peptides and steroids and injections and all these things to become that top 10%? And now Clav is disrespectful. He's a whoremonger. Now he is a brutal and severe person. Now you see women being called ugly to their faces, being called fat, being called a bitch, whatever. And I guess what I would say about it, like I said, the tension is I'm sort of rooting for him. You'd like to see women now on the receiving end. You'd like to see the tables turned where women are getting bitched and smacked around. They acted like whores. They acted like superficial and dismissive and all of that. Now they're on the receiving end of it. You're sort of rooting for it. It feels justified. On the other hand, you say this is an arms race where nobody wins. Take your Israeli
that's probably
family
the best
and go
place
home.
to kind of key off of, which is, did Clavicular kind of start this arms race, in which I think he did. And I think more people obviously involved, like you had mentioned too. It's been happening for a hot minute. Perhaps it's just getting a lot more kind of vocalized, visualized. But definitely support NAV. Super Chats memberships are open. Thank you, Zeb, for that. We did get a Super Chat right after that. This is from Stacking Coins. He says, the best feds in the business. Miss you, boys. Appreciate it very much. Thank you for the Super Chat. And I'm happy for it. I'm happy for it. I'm excited for more of it, more of the looks maxing. And again, it quite literally is the opposite. It is like men who are like, maybe are rating themselves higher than what they should be, now acting in a certain way towards women. And sure, it can get a bit narcissistic and arrogant. But again, when someone's pushing on the window, they're going to be edgy, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, I think Nick is right here, but I would say, my broader take is that if we fix the men, the women will fix themselves. And I've kind of held this position for a little while. I'm not going to say that feminism didn't start this, first, second, third, you name it, didn't kind of start this thing, but and on down the rabbit hole we go with chemicals and everything else in the water,
Right.
and the air, but I think the woman question is an issue that needs to be tackled. I don't think it is the primary issue. That being said, I think the looks maxing, or at least something approaching it, maybe not the extremeness of it, for the vast majority of people, will somewhat at least something approaching a solution to the woman question. Obviously, it's going to take a lot more than just looks maxing, but it is. I think it's relatively a step in the right direction. I'm not. At the same time, I'm not advocating somebody like 14 years old stunting their growth with GH or steroids test, you name it, whatever you want to take. We can go down that road too. I know Atlas is extremely knowledgeable on the. No, I'm just kidding, on the roids.
No, there was a time when I used to buy things out of somebody's trunk of their car, but it's been a long time since then. I guess what I would say, I also think of Homath as well too. Homath is somebody that comes to mind as like an answer to what's happening here. And for all those who don't like the looks maxers, I think what really is, it's like Clavicular is almost an acting upon the groundwork that Homath has laid, which is, if you were to look at the groundwork that Homath has laid out, you would basically do anything you could to be one of those top 3 guys that's in the top percentiles. You would want to be one of those guys that has the access to the woman. Now, Homath does a better job explaining like the female behavior aspect of it. And I do think that you see all these things popping up and following it from, I think, maybe the original kind of answer was like the Meninist. I don't know where those guys have gone, but it used to be this kind of profile picture with a big beard, and it was Meninist. And Meninists were like responding to things like on Instagram. This was way back in like, I don't even think Obama was elected at this point. But just to see
Take
these
your
kind of like
Israeli
the developments
family
kind of
and
continue
go
on and on.
home.
Are you familiar with Meninist? You remember that?
Names are coming up. I can't remember, like Matt. What's his name? I am, just very, very loosely.
Yeah,
it was in the ballpark.
Yeah, they were like the early era, like, and they weren't even really attacking women. The early era was like look how hypocritical this is. But that didn't work. You know, that obviously didn't work. No one cared about that. And so perhaps maybe this is the better answer. And I do think the cool thing that I like to hear, I was listening to Homath and Dave Riley, actually. They had a live stream, I think, last night or 2 nights ago. And it was Homath talking about how many men have reached out to him saying, you know, I've taken your advice. I've taken this into consideration. It's helped me tremendously. Like, thank you for laying this out. And that was always kind of like my biggest beef with the system of this element, which is the whole thing sets men up for failure from the very beginning. You know, when young men are being taught, you know, to like buy flowers, you know, your looks don't matter. It's about the essence of love. And they're kind of like, the whole thing is just omitting the general nature of female behavior. And I think, you know, if I was my perfect world, I would try to inject Homath level understanding around like 10 or 11 or 12 years old. Like, let's get this started a bit earlier before we get men way down the line. Because if you spend the first couple years of your adolescence doing things like, you know, being lethargic, eating nachos, drinking Mountain Dew, you're setting yourself up for a lot of failure for like those next couple of years. And I would say high leverage point years from like 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, and 21, when you're being, you know, you're fomenting a lot of your beliefs, you're developing, and you're basically like in your prime era to like be getting with women, making these kind of choices. Because for a lot of people, I find those moments kind of set them for the rest of their lives. Not everybody, but for a lot of people, they develop kind of like fully there. Go ahead.
Yeah, and you know, I'm not on board completely with the some of the positioning on Homath, and I would assume you're not completely either on board with some of the positioning of people like the Tates and Myron,
Right.
and some of these others. You know, we hold a much more traditional position on this, and I think me and you are uniquely in a boat here, given, you know, somewhat influencers, if you will,
Yeah.
that, you know, we've been married for an extended period of time, right? So I met my wife in high school, and I've avoided the social media, the Tinders, the whatever else is going on nowadays, right? I don't even think people are even on dating apps anymore, because they're just so atrocious. And so, you know, I've avoided that. You know, I see the scene, I know what's going on, but I haven't experienced that. And so, you know, I maybe I have a little bit different take. You know, I would prefer people to get married younger.
Right.
But the problem is that's not the society that we live in right now. And so when we take, you know, when we're offering solutions, it has to take that into account. And so I'm not going to say to you, you know, marry your high school sweetheart, just because that's your high school sweetheart, right? Because this isn't that world. I would love if that was the case, but it's just simply not anymore.
I completely agree with you.
And it's largely due to the internet, primarily, right when Facebook came along, destroyed marriages across the board, and then everything that has come on since then. So, well, MySpace, there you go, MySpace, Atlas. Were you ever on MySpace, dude?
Yeah, I was there. I was there getting on the school bus. People were talking about it. Like, what's your top 5? What did you put there? Right? Like, I remember.
What's your background? Do you remember?
Yeah, exactly. When you give you a bit more custom ability
and music. Oh, dude, MySpace, golden.
I know.
What happened, dude?
I know. What happened to the guy who made it? I have no idea. But you know, I do.
Dude, he's living life, dude. He's the only one that figured it out.
He sold out and he's good.
He's good, dude.
I know.
Done. He didn't try to then bioengineer viruses and try to change the world however he felt like it. You know, he just
helped fund a country.
He dipped
center.
out, dude. We need him back. Tom for president, 2032. Let's go.
Yeah, ahead of his time. Somebody said. That's funny. But I mean, I completely agree with you, especially like on the marriage element, because And we kind of have to take this unique position because if you go to like the more of the mainstream route, they do default to what you were saying, which is, just marry your high school sweetheart. Don't even think about it. And I find that to be, for one, irrespective of female behavior, modern female behavior. And it's also kind of a throwaway too, because I would say, I think generally, if you were to liberate women at any point in history, you would see the same kind of things. But additionally, I would also add, it's irrespective of like family court. And family court to me is like the bigger element here.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
no,
no, it is a complete denial of how the system is built to destroy marriage and then to destroy men on top of that.
agreed. I saw this insane story. It was a 14-year-old guy was actually raped by a like 20-year-old woman, and she later came back for child support like 6 years later, and he's now having to pay child support for a baby that he didn't even know for 6 years that he happened when he was 14. And you see more of these kind of insane cases, and I'm sure there's people here who probably follow, what is it, like Bad Boy Billy Prather, whatever that account is, that just posts all the worst stories you've ever seen in your life that just demoralize the life out of you.
Never come across it. I don't think I want to either.
You don't want to. It's like Reddit horror stories. It's like, we haven't been intimate in 41 years, and I found out my wife was cheating on me for 30 of them. It's just like some of like the most egregious examples you can find. And part of me thinks half of that's fake. They put it in ChatGPT. How can I demoralize the average man? Give me the best story that would make them not want to go get married. How much of it's true, how much of it's not. But here's the thing. I guess to change it up and be a bit more topical here, this is something, and we'll spend a short period of time on it because I know we talked for like at length about accelerationism here the other day. But I think the next topic that came up on Monday was this kind of message that Nick wants to send to the GOP. And we're just going to spend a couple minutes on it. I do have to stop it at 3:30 exactly because a bunch of hard R's come flying out after that. So we're gonna avoid those for the time being. But here this is.
Oh,
And I guess,
is that a banned word on Nav? I didn't know.
I don't know. I don't really know.
I'm messing.
Right, I don't know.
I'm
If we
messing.
could, I wouldn't be opposed to it.
Somebody in chat said, "Screw chemicals for look maxing, not chemicals for brand maxing." I guess if we're leaving the topic, we can go ahead. I want to go ahead and grab this real quick because there was a push really hard back in 2012, 2013, right around the time the new atheists were kind of making their move, where there was this massive like biohacking situation going on where people were microdosing all kinds of stuff, dude, that they were trying to essentially biohack themselves to brain max, like it said. So it's been floated before. The question is of traction, and the stars have to align to some extent to where it gets the enough traction to be a clavicular level situation, if you will.
A reaction, or like, reverberate, I guess, through the rest of everywhere. The biohacking stuff was insane because I had a buddy, I won't name him, but I had a buddy in college who did this, and he took part in an experiment that actually did prove if you like microdose, I believe it was LSD, you can cure blue-green color blindness or something like that, or yellow-blue color blindness, forgive me. It's just like a crazy thing that, like, how would you have ever found that out if you didn't do some kind of crazy experiment that would otherwise probably be illegal elsewhere?
Nah, they were doing some insanes with the biohacking stuff. I mean, they were I can't recall specifically. I just remember there were a few guys that were like going like way off on the edge.
Yeah. Well, now we have Brian Johnson. The guy who wants to be immortal.
Yeah, I mean Brian Johnson. You got. I mean, just bypass everything and go full on Elon and try to Neuralink everything.
Yeah, I'll just go to Mars. I'll be okay.
Yeah.
But you are right. I mean, the point with it is, beyond just looks maxing. I think, and people who watch me and follow my show know how much I've been talking about ethos, and I find ethos to be the number one pillar, especially in today's times. If you were comparing it between logos and pathos, ethos, I think, reigns supreme, especially nowadays. But don't let it be just the looks maxing element. You also do want to brain max, as was said earlier, but also spiritual max. I mean, everything. And a lot of that goes into it too. And so, you can look the best, but ultimately if you lack charisma, you lack competency, you lack the ability to actually articulate your words and positions, all of it kind of is for naught. And so who wants to see themselves as a Larry Wheels, right? Larry Wheels, top of the world for a long time. And all it takes is like 2 or 3 streams of seeing how his wife, disrespects him. Allegedly, he's like a cuck. I'm not going to, I'll say allegedly because I guess there were messages floating around. But it's all gone. It's like all the muscles in the world. It doesn't matter because you the way other areas of your life will catch up to you. And it's got to be a comprehensive, cohesive picture. If you're going to walk the walk and talk the talk, you need to be someone who looks like Andrew Tate, but also acts like Andrew Tate off screen as well, too. I'm not saying to be Andrew Tate. I'm just saying, in that sense, ultimately, you need more than just the looks. But I guess to move topics over to the next one, going back to where we were at, again, we won't spend too much time on this, but again, this is kind of a recurring theme of this week from Nick Fuentes, and it was his message.
Are we done with looks maxing real quick?
Do you want to add something else? Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to add something else, just like a general, and you may agree with me, maybe not. I don't know. I don't think the aspect of looks maxing to where the ASU, the frat guys are going, to where Clavicular is going, is necessary. And I think you kind of alluded to it earlier with like beards and stuff like that. I mean, if you just put on mass, people respect you more. Like that's just how it goes. It's not that they intentionally do it. It's that, okay, there's a physical presence here, just like you mentioned with Larry Wheels, as long as it's not undermined by something else. Yeah. Just keep your mouth shut and don't say anything retarded. And, that by itself will go a long way. And that's just me, giving a little insight from personal experience and or just general, the fastest way to looks max if you're not insanely obese right now is to just go to the gym and put on mass. Pick up heavy things. That's all you got to do.
Yes. And let me tell you this too. Don't lose fat and then go for muscle. Build the muscle while you're fat. You'll think, you might not understand now, but you will thank me later. Don't waste your time doing that. I did also miss a super chat here. It's from Raven, or Raven, I would imagine. It's a race to the bottom.
Call him Eric.
What's that?
Eric.
Forgive me, man. It's a race to the bottom.
He changed his name. No, he changed his name.
Oh, word. Okay. But he says, and thank you for the super chat. He says, it's a race to the bottom in a hedonistic and narcissistic vehicle. And I think that's kind of where what Nick was alluding to, which is it's an arms race that ultimately nobody will win because it's still obviously missing the bigger picture. Like where's Christ in any of this? But again, these are offering temporal world, earthly solutions to earthly problems that no one else is even attempting to give an answer to for young men. For the most part, they're being ignored and told just figure it out on their own. And so they're left to their own devices, which is why you find so many different types of guys in these different niches. They just kind of, ultimately, no direction, no real role models. You end up with a bunch of different types of people. But I guess, was there anything else you wanted to add on the looks, Maxim?
No, let's go ahead. You go, brother.
Word.
Yeah, I just want to add that. I mean, that's the fastest way.
And it also, and let me tell you this too. I completely agree with that. It also logically follows, and you want to be the first person asked, like, I need to move some chairs over here. We're setting up for Sunday school. You want to be the first person they come to ask for, right? But it also logically follows because the more mass you have, the more literal gravity you have. I mean, it's like a physical, like you could map it out mathematically. And I think that some of those elements would definitely transfer just in the kind of metaphysical anyways. But again,
it's also a lot easier to downsize than it is to gain weight. I mean, to gain actual mass.
Right.
And so you can either be, even Clavicular as like thin as he is, he's still got some decent muscle mass on him.
Right. Just not in his chest, apparently.
I haven't seen his chest.
He did 3 on 135, I think is his max.
Really, dude?
Unless that's staged, but that's the last thing I saw of him.
I was doing 3x10 working sets with 225. I started back at the gym the other day I've been out for like 8 months or something. So
that's awesome. I went to the gym earlier today.
Dude. It stays. You build the muscle mass, it stays with you, dude. I mean, I got 15 years of foundation. It's not going to go away.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and that's also another piece of advice. Like, start early too. Because I agree with Zeb. Like, I put it on early. I put the work in early. Like at my peak when I was 18, 19. So I can afford to take a few days off, right? Like the bone density is not going to disappear, overnight or anything. But to be topical and move on to the next subject here, this is kind of the recurring theme of what happened through this week as well, kind of a response to the Epstein files, the Iran war, just this general kind of feeling
Take
of
your
MAGA
Israeli
failing on its
family
promises
and go
tremendously.
home.
But, even beyond that, kind of stabbing them in the back to a certain degree. Thank you for the super chat, Joe Gasser. I'll do that before we play the clip. But this was kind of Nick's message to the Groypers, and I'd imagine just conservatives and right-wingers at large, which is to, stay home ahead of the midterms. Let me get ahead of this super chat real quick. Judy Gasser says, sorry if you guys touch the subject, I'm late. You guys see a parallel between our society and Universe 25 experiment? Also, the mass thing is dumb. Massively obese people don't build following.
No, I'm not saying get obese.
Yeah. Well, I would even disagree on that.
I don't think that when I say mass, I mean muscle mass. When I say fat, I mean fat. I'm 240 right now. I'm 240 right now. I mean, I'm not fat. My face has always been round. When I was lean, my face was still round. And I have no issue with people calling me fat because of my face. But when I say mass, I mean actual muscle mass, right? When I'm talking about just strong man. Just strong man mass more than anything.
Corn fed.
And then you can cut down to something bodybuilding-esque, physique-esque.
Yeah. I'm more blown away you got 40 pounds on me.
No way you're 200 pounds, dude.
Yeah. I'm like 203.
Hold him up like a pretzel, son.
I'm like, and now I got to build more, dude. Like, I was leaning down, and now it's like, all right, dude, now 225 it is.
I touched 260 at one point when I was doing like 4 hours a day. In the gym. I touched 260. I was like, dude, this is too much, dog. Too much. I gotta lose some weight, man.
You want to go to 230? That the goal?
Yeah, I was fine at 230. I'm happy at 230. I could lose 10, 15 pounds for sure.
Right. Well, okay. Well, to the topic we've been trying to get to for a couple of moments.
Take your Israeli family.
To the answer the super chat. Yeah, we touched on it real earlier. And I mentioned that Prosopa Insights did a video on Universe 25 and the beautiful ones. So you can definitely check that out. He didn't go as in-depth as I thought he would, but yeah.
He followed up again. He says, Atlas mentioned physics of mass attraction. Yeah, well, I would even actually agree with Zeb, where Zeb was at. Because, the most common funny fat guy, they're just naturally an attractive, not a physically attractive, but it is an attracting thing. It's a common kind of element you see, right? The funny fat guy. And you see many of these other elements where you see many fat men actors who perform very well. They have magnetic personalities. Like I think there is, maybe less so, obviously, because it wouldn't be all the elements, but I do think there's an element of the physical that the mass does attract. I think it works for women as well, too. I think the biggest, loudest woman typically, runs the herd. When the best friend's, gatekeeping you from dating the girl, who is it that comes up to you? It's the refrigerator. The refrigerator boxes you out. Not physically attractive, but they do play a certain role. But to move on, here's Nick Fuentes' message to the GOP and plan trusters ahead of the midterms.
Wait, it didn't work. Fuck you. Now we don't vote. That's the message. Seriously. Can't blame anybody else. Bad advice, bad advisors, Biden's economy. Enough already. It didn't work. We're not voting. I'm staying home. And you know what? I hope the Democrats impeach him. I hope the Democrats impeach all of them. I hope they indict everybody. I hope they depose and compel the release of documents. And I hope they find all the criminal behavior. And I hope it destroys the GOP. I hope it creates a crisis for the GOP so severe that they never recover. And then I hope we get a fucking Nazi to run in 28. And I mean that metaphorically. I don't mean that literally. I hope we get a fucking fascist to run in 28 to burn the GOP down as a dark horse and win the presidency as a right-wing radical. That is my hope. That is my playbook. That's what I want. I don't trust them anymore. They say, we just got to vote for Vance. No, shut up. I'm not listening to you. The same people that brought you this garbage now want to sell you Vance. I'm not listening. You fucking people told me that Trump was going to deliver a golden age in mass deportations and $2 trillion in cuts and charter cities and all this crap. You lied. It didn't happen. Now you're selling us on Vance? I don't think so. I'm not even listening anymore. I'm not voting. And they could say whatever they want. Say whatever you want. Try and squirm and struggle and flail around. I am not listening anymore. I am not voting. I am not reasonable anymore. We all played that for the last how many cycles? Were we the reasonable ones? Hold your nose and vote. Lesser of two evils. We can't let the Democrats win. Okay, well, we let the Republicans win. Look at what that has profited us. I know it's profited Israel. I know it's profited Silicon Valley and Wall Street and the rich. What good is that doing us? What good is that doing any of us that live in cities like Chicago or New York or LA or even the red states for that matter? It's not doing us any good. Ken Griffin, Trump's boy, is down there in Miami, back in the Democrat mayor over there. I'm out. You lost me.
So I'll let you respond first.
Yeah, I mean, imagine still living in Chicago in 2026, dude. What an insane take, to be honest with you. But no, I mean, Nick's listen, we had this debate the other day, and I'm not going to say Nick's wrong on this. I think he is, but it's going to have to be played out over time. I would like to say that I am announcing my candidacy for 2028, and I am a full-on fascist. Can I get the Nick endorsement? I'll hold my breath for that. Just kidding. But no, yeah, I mean, we obviously need to stop compromising. I mean, that's kind of the position he's taken, and it's not just in elections; it's across the board. The right needs to stop compromising, whatever it comes to, and elections are one. Though, as we had the debate the other day, I don't even agree that the vote even matters anymore at that level. So.
Yeah, no, like I said earlier, we wouldn't want to rehash it. If anybody wants to see the Fuller or Fudge debate, which I'm sure we'll probably have more of these in the future, you can catch that one of the last episode I did on my channel with featuring Zeb Boykin. And you'll see it because it's Yankee versus Confederate. It's hard to miss. Pretty good thumbnail, actually.
Banger thumbnail, dude.
I'm just glad YouTube let me put it up there. And again, I guess what I would say to this clip in particular is what I find would be probably the most to take away from this is I think this regardless is going to resonate with people who are just unhappy with what's happening right now. And this whole kind of like F it all mentality, I think can be either directed or it can be kind of left to be people to escape or opt out. And I think that's the worst option, is people opting out entirely, going back to what they were doing, instead of paying attention to what's on their X feed, they're turning on the NFL, Sunday ticket, and they're going back to watching football. They don't care what's happening anymore. And that's the kind of like the demoralization I hope isn't occurring right now, although I know it is. And I think ultimately just the message here resonates. And I think there probably will be, I can see it now, a massy ticket forming, or at least getting a feeler out there, I would imagine. And especially too, when you think about the fact that they're throwing, the Adelsons are throwing a lot of their weight at Thomas Massie. Trump's obviously throwing a bunch of weight at Thomas Massie. He may use it to his advantage and just vacate the Kentucky seat and be like, well, Trump and Yell, you guys didn't want me here, so good luck. Whoever's the next person is, you can have him. And then you have a bunch of people in Kentucky being pissed off as well too. So I can see this going a lot of good directions for Massie. My fear is will this be a Massie Ro-Khanna ticket, right? Because that's the direction I don't want it to go. I don't want it to go this bit more of an open borders, back to more of this compromising with the left. Because again, Thomas Massie's not strong on the border element. He's never been really strong on immigration. And that's the kind of thing that I would fear, which is what you would want in the next 4 years, is someone to get hands-on with the deportations. And I don't see that from Massie. But Massie would be good on a lot of other elements, especially like decoupling from Israel.
Yeah, I mean the Massey stuff does seem to be on the rise. I got a lot of questions coming out from Massey. I'm not a Massey fanboy. I do agree with a lot of his takes. Open borders not being one of those. Obviously, he doesn't agree with open borders, but he is a libertarian on the immigration issue.
Yeah.
Now it's coming out, and I don't know if you've seen this, but the one of his staffers' fathers owns the Zora Ranch from Jeffrey Epstein.
That's
And
wild.
so he has essentially blocked anyone and everyone that's even mentioning that. And it's like off the table now for him. So, I think everybody's tied up into this thing. And some people think that they can get away with it more than others. That's kind of my position on this. Obviously, Massey wouldn't, I mean, if they really didn't want Massey in office, he wouldn't be in office at the end of the day. That being said, I mean, give me a Vance Massey ticket, as long as it's not some insane Brown on the other side of the ticket. I would vote for a Massey ticket more than likely.
Interesting. So you would vote for a Vance Massey ticket?
No, I'd vote for a Massey over Vance.
Massey over Vance, word.
Yeah.
And we were talking a little bit, in the green room. I think that's kind of the next step, which is the expectation of who will be on this ticket. And I think one point I think we both agree on here is, me and you are both, and I think both of you, we all both agree on this, it's already started, watching as JD Vance is going to begin to separate himself from the current administration. And you brought something to my attention beforehand, which is this report coming out. I'm assuming attached to Kirikow, who was on with Julian Dory, that the only two people really dissenting against the Iran war is both Vance and Tulsi Gabbard. And this potential of Tulsi being this number 2 addition to Vance, I think, does highlight and bring back a lot more of the libertarian crowd who would have fallen away from MAGA and going back into it. At the same time, though, we're also failing across the board on all the Maha promises as well. Make America healthy again, both on the glyphosate. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, keep going. No, you're probably about to say it.
Yeah, the glyphosate executive order, but then also additionally to that, it looks like they're beginning to walk back the restrictions they're putting on FDA for the red food dyes. And I think that there's something else in there too, but the red food dye being the most notable. I mean, it's like across the board. It's like everything's a huge step back. And so I don't know how many people who had barely been able to say, okay, RFK's got it. Okay, you know what? I'll go ahead and vote for Trump. I don't know how many of those people will be coming back after this administration expecting Tulsi to do it, when we already had a period where everybody felt like Tulsi lied to them because of the initial Iranian strike. But however, she has some things in her defense, given the fact that New York Times posted that she was getting in an argument with Kash Patel and other staffers as well. Like this, they had to meet multiple times because like the first meeting was just like yelling. They couldn't even get anything accomplished. I would be curious to see the Tulsi ticket. I still think a Vance and a Rubio ticket would be a little bit stronger, though, in my opinion. Just it would touch more on the base.
Yeah. I mean, on the Maha stuff, the food coloring issue and the walk back is kind of par for the course at this point, right? The walk back from the Trump administration across the board is just it's almost day in and day out now. I mean, I will say to RFK's defense, when I go to the grocery store now, I have the option of, I think they call them naked, like naked Doritos. They're in a white bag.
Oh yeah.
They're simple. I think Simply is one of them, simple Ruffles or something like that. In the potato chip aisle and things like that. So, if I'm measuring an administration, or specifically an administrator in the somebody on the cabinet in their role, I think RFK by far, unquestionably, has done more for the day-to-day life of Americans than anyone else. And I don't even think it's close. And that's not to say that the thing is in writing or that it's done, but the threat of the thing is there. And so the companies have to respond, or at least get ahead of it. And so I think that's what they're doing largely, to kind of maybe run a little bit of defense there. Though he is in the files. But who isn't at this point, except for George Bush?
Right. Well, he
invaded Iran for the fun of it.
Well, I would imagine you saw was it the Chris Martinson who brought it to everybody's attention? But like it's like 99, 2000, and 2001. Like no Epstein files were released in like those 3 years. It's like, of course, everything 9/11 related is going to be omitted out of this.
I covered that. Dude, somebody posted the chart. Maybe it was Luke. from We Are Change, but they took that chart that was like this green, and then they had the two red dips, and they just put the an outline of the World Trade Centers in the middle of that, talking about how
where this would have been.
Basically that's exactly what it was. But well, I don't even remember what the question was. Oh, Tulsi ticket. And I've said this for a little while, and it seems like, I'm not going to say it's staged, but to act like these people don't play years ahead of time is crazy. And so we look at, is this leak real? Is it not real? Really, it doesn't matter, because it's going to be on the psyche moving forward regardless. JD Vance has backed off on a couple of other issues from the Trump administration as a whole. And Tulsi Gabbard, specifically with Joe Kent over there at the DNI, trying to look into foreign interference with the Charlie Kirk assassination, and got shut down by the FBI, Kash Patel and Pam Bondi. Those things are kind of putting Tulsi Gabbard in a position to be like, hey, I'm the one that's actually trying to get after what is true. Put me on a VP seat with the Vance ticket, and we can go all the way, along with the typical token as VP as everyone does, basically.
Right. What other crowd are you reaching into? What other demographic are you going for?
Right. Yeah.
And you're spot on. The one thing I was going to add too, you said par for the course, and I think the thing that's notable about the walk back on the FDA is this is more of like the Chamber of Commerce, like whispering, the big business donors, like, hey, this policy is going to really hurt us, right? And this is kind of like the whole point of why ICE isn't at job sites. Why is ICE not pulling out the stops for Home Depot or going to the agricultural sites where they can catch them in the fields? Business
Welcome
donors.
to the SAVE Act.
Right. Yeah. Right. And then the other thing too is like the Dignity Act as well, which I'm sure you probably are familiar with this, right? Co-sponsored by Mike Lawler, of course, of all people. And it was like the moment that we got the drawdown in Minnesota, it's like, oh, here's a coalition of 35 congressmen ready to talk about how we give legal status to all these illegals. It's like, this is insane. In what you mentioned, they're being planning ahead, and that can't be missed as well too. I think JD Vance is kind of the what you call the face card of this, which is most people know of him because we have reverse followed his timeline. We're looking back and like when he's meeting up with Peter Thiel, meeting with people, what was it, the Lincoln Project, some people from there, right? He was heavily anti-Trump early on, and then watching as he's kind of changing his positioning and expectations of where he would be in 2028, 2032. And I think they were more so aiming for 2032. I think it happening a little bit earlier, I think was a little bit speeding up their plans there. I also want to mention too, while we were on like the Making Things Healthy again, I want to shout this out. It's the Buyer app. It's produced by Ian Carroll. It's a really good app. Basically, you just like point your camera in the store. And I think it also includes like a heat map as well. There's different settings on there. Basically, you can figure out, is this a good product? Is it a healthy product? Is it processed, etc.? But also, who funds it? Where's it coming from? If you buy this, where's your money going to? It's got a lot of good things going for it. And so shout out to Ian Carroll for making that the Buyer app. And I guess it's kind of it for moving forward. I don't want to jump back into too much of a debate there.
Well, I mean, I guess you bring up Peter Thiel, and we were talking about looks maxing earlier. I mean, how much connection do you think that Thiel has to clavicular?
So I have not looked. I've seen the whispers. I've seen the people pointing it out. I've seen even people, the ASU frat leader. The reason why people are saying that instead of his real name is because people are believing that is Peter Thiel's son. So,
well, supposedly he's not an ASU frat leader.
Really?
He's not
just
even
some random guy.
There. Yeah. Yeah, just some. Well, he knew Clav was going to be there and showed up.
Interesting. Dude, it is World War Mod.
Stream sniper. Looks maxing stream sniper.
Yeah, looks maxing sniper. It's just the timeline we're in could not be any further from what a sane reality would feel like if you were asking me. But no, I guess moving on to one of the next topics is one thing that we've been meaning to get back into talking about on the circuit, which hopefully we'll get back to, is revisiting this kind of idea of like the podcast circuits, the purpose of someone being, loaded out multiple times. They're on Tucker, they're on this. But one of the ones we wanted to review actually was the Joel Webben and Nick Fuentes series. And one of the most recent episodes that aired talked about race realism. And I'm kind of curious, your kind of positioning on this. I'll start right here at the very top one, because Nick kind of puts a nuanced take of being a race realist, but also kind of warding himself against like what he considers to be actual racial hatred. And so this is this first clip we'll watch here.
You start out that way and you say, I'm not racist. All I'm saying is this. All I'm saying is that. And what I have noticed, though, in the past 10 years is I do legitimately see that there are people that are filled with hatred.
Yeah.
And it's rare, but we have to be honest and call spade a spade. I do see people that have become emboldened and they're riled up and they're not the brightest, but people that are like, no, I am a racial idolater and race is everything to me. And I hate all these other groups are blah, blah, blah. And that's why it's important to be nuanced about, and I hate the word nuance, but like you have to be precise about what you're talking about. And I am adamantly against racial hatred because I'm against hatred. I don't hate individuals. I don't hate races. And I would say it's not even that you dislike them. It's just a recognition that the world is comprised of peoples, and the peopling, it matters. It means something. It's real and it's biological, but it also means something to us. Like to be black, to be white, it means something to black people, to white people. It means something to each other. So it's sociological and it's real, and we have to account for it. And we code switch. When we talk to black people, we talk differently. We talk to other groups, more sensitivity. You know, maybe we mirror some of their mannerisms or something. And that's one thing. And it's a completely different thing to say that we live and die by our race, that our race is our uniform. And, you know, we're going to bat, you know, because I think about this a lot. And I think about how, you know, you can spend a lot of time with someone from another race and really have a good relationship with them on account of they're a good person. And you can admire that they have character and integrity. And you really find you can grow a deep bond because you respect a person morally. You respect their faith, their character, etc. And so there is something deeper than race. There is actually something deeper that's universal. At the same time, that's a gap that you may never fully bridge. Because at the end of the day, there are certain things when you're going to be reminded, we look at things differently because of who we are, because we're white and they're black or Hispanic or whatever. At the end of the day, we do tend to favor being with our own kind. We don't like to feel like aliens. We want to feel familiar. And so it's like, it's tough to kind of balance between a primitive racial hatred and like what you would call xenophobia, just hatred of those that are not like you. At the same time, there is something, in my opinion, natural and actually good about tribalism in itself that, look, we like being around people that look like us. It is that simple for me.
Right.
And people ask me about...
Well, because we like being around people who look like us because the people who look like us have the highest likelihood of being like us.
Right.
It's the skin color, the outward visible extremities are not arbitrary. They are visible external markers of a certain kind of person. And, you know, again, always exceptions, but it's like, this person who looks exactly like that person, chances are, not just with their physical appearance, but with their behaviors, with their values, with this, that, and the other, there's probably some similarities.
Right.
So we want to be with people who look like us because we want to be with people who are like us.
And you start out, take your Israeli family.
I guess I'll go ahead and let you
go
respond to that
home.
first. I guess, is there anything that you disagree with in there? Or would you like, would you word it differently? Where are we at with that one?
Yeah, I mean, I would probably word it a little bit differently. Obviously, these videos were shot back in August, September, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, early.
And so, this was early on. I think his position slightly shifted, even since then, towards a more civic nationalist positioning, and I think a lot of this stems from maybe the realization that the practicality of white America isn't really on the table. And I've hit him pretty hard on this positioning, but to take it easy here, obviously this is the Groyper report. I have no real issue with the hatred of a group of people as a whole. Right. So if I'm taking, I think this is a quote that I heard from Joe Webben, was if I treat groups as groups and individuals as individuals, right? If we're Christians and we're taught to not hate people because hate would be the murder of the mind, I can hold that positioning, right? I have friends that aren't white, but I don't hate them. But if I have if I take a look at, I don't know, India, it starts to bubble up. What's Shane Gillis talks about? You're not racist all the time. It's not a switch, but if you get cut off in traffic,
Yeah.
that being said, I guess it depends on how you define hatred. It's right. It's the same. It's in the same bucket of how do you find anti-Semitism, and who gets to define that. I'm not calling for the genocide of everyone that's not like me. At the same time, I do hate demon worshipers, and if that is a race of demon worshipers, then why not? But again, the definitional thing is the issue, right? Are we talking about racial with regard to white, black, brown, yellow, red, or are we talking about racial with regards to nations? Are we talking about racial in some other concept? So I would say I am a Christian race realist. Michael Spangler wrote a book about it. I haven't actually finished it, but I will do that soon. Yeah, shout out Spangler and all those guys over there, Cody Justice and Stone Choir with Corey and Woe, doing some heavy lifting.
Well, yeah.
Also, that being said, Joe Webben had a debate with Ruslan the other day, and what's God logic? Absolutely not a great showing from Webben, to be honest with you, man. The mixed dude, I can't remember his name right now, but he did the best job out there, I thought. Anyway, that being said, I thought Joel Webben took a weaker position on race realism, and specifically, I believe it was interracial marriage is the positioning he was taking.
Yeah,
that it's not normative. I think a weaker position did a disservice to him in the debate than taking a stronger position would have, and so. That's just a side note. It's kind of the same, in the same ballpark that we're going to. I am after what is true, regardless. I couldn't care less what people think. So,
no, I agree. I
again,
think
that definitions kind of boils down to it.
The mixed dude is Andy Griffin, I think is his name.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, Andy
Dude,
Griffin.
I called him. That was like a year ago. I was watching a Webben episode, and I was like, "Who is this? Who is this Timberland American?" And I tweeted out, I was like, "I don't like Timberland Americans." I think you saw that. You saw that tweet. But I tweeted him after the miscegenation debate they did, and I was like, "Dude, this was a subtweet about you. I apologize." So. And he accepted, but yeah, I mean, solid showing from him. Obviously, he's got a better grasp on it than most of them do, just because he's lived it, right? Life experience carries so much weight with a lot of this stuff.
Well, and there's a couple of directions I could go here. I was actually listening to Corey Mahler answer Q&A, I believe, like 2 nights ago or a night ago. I can't remember. Corey Mahler, I would always recommend to people. Like to me, like. I like women a lot. Trust me, I do. But you could turn Corey on at any point in time, at any point in a stream, and you'll just start learning. It's just something that it's very unique to certain individuals who are very intelligent. And with Corey, he can articulate it very well too. So it's not like a Whitney Webb kind of stream where you got to you got to look this up. It's not really making any sense. Corey Mahler does a fantastic job. And I like what you had said earlier, right? Which is the group versus the individual. Because so often in these scenarios, people make these category errors, like the category error of how they were actually framing what they were thinking about when they thought about hating. And I think the direction that Corey Mahler took it was the Bible verse that talks about, not taking God's vengeance. But then Corey makes the distinction, which is well, are your enemies God's enemies? Who are you to put yourself in the position of God? And a bit more, and I'm probably doing a poor job of explaining it, but the category error is what typically plagues most of these kind of Christian debates when it pertains to anything that is socially repulsive, I guess you would say. And I would also say miscegenation. I can never say the word right, but the interracial marriage I think is socially repulsive. I think it is legitimately repulsive, and in that, and in the light of,
Dude, hey, quick side note, dude. Quick side note on that. I don't mean to
Yeah.
interrupt you hard, but
You're good.
it just popped in my head. Dude, I was at I was at a Harris Teeter the other day getting some steaks, and there was a mixed couple walking down the aisle, and a guy pushing a buggy was walking out the aisle too. Like they were walking towards me. He was walking out of the aisle, and I watched his face because I knew what was going to happen. I watched his face look at him and just turn to disgust as they walked by. And and I
You knew it
didn't
was
say
coming.
anything to him. Just a little head nod, dude. Like, this is
Yeah.
what we're dealing with, dude.
right? You do the white man glance. You look at each other.
You could just see it. Like I mean, dude was fine, man. He was walking just fine. And he goes, the little disgust face.
I've seen so many good memes of this where it's like, the two white men in Walmart looking at each other when the Timberland American starts mouthing off, things like this. Like, it's so casual. But I think Andy Griffin, the reason why his point, like, it resonates is because he's obviously speaking from this experience. And there is this sense of which, like, he is now the mix of two different nations. Like, he has two different ethnicities, which means like he's like a part of neither. He's outside of both groups. And this is actually where the evil kind of sets in. It's because you're basically birthing someone into a destroyed kind of lineage, or a very, very mixed up lineage, and one that's obviously not going to benefit him any kind of way. I mean, socially, I guess he's going to get credit because he's kind of like the token guy on Joe Evans' show now, so there's some benefits to it.
Well,
Go ahead.
there's been studies on this on mixed kids, and they almost unanimously all are homeless. They have no real identity, right? You don't get both identities, you get neither for the most part. And I mean, this is the case with just America in general too, right? If you claim melting pot and then there is no real identity from there, right? But you don't add to it. Again, we can stack something like assimilation onto that, right? People don't assimilate to a country primarily, I would argue, because they don't rid themselves of where they came from, right? I would argue that not only is assimilation adopting the country that you're coming into, but it is absolving yourself of everything, of all the baggage that you have brought with you at the same time. It is two shot. It is not just adopting the thing, because they are mutually exclusive.
Right.
And so that's kind of what we're dealing with the miscegenation too, is like, there's no home for these people, and the vast majority of the people that they did the studies on, I think they went and did interviews with people like this too, and they say, everybody says that my hair is so cool, but it's like, I'm not like anyone else, and that is an issue.
Right. I've actually watched a few videos of mixed individuals, either quoting some kind of statement that came out of the political scene and saying, like, here's my experience. I actually agree with these guys. You might not believe this, but, I do agree with them. And what you end up seeing more often than not is they kind of spend the rest of their lives leading into one of them. It'll either be, the light-skinned guy just goes full send on thuggery, and it's like, I want to be accepted in the black community. Or it goes the other way, and it's like, no, I'm one of the good ones. And ultimately, it's like there never will fully be adopted into that crowd. I mean, I guess you could make an argument that mixed individuals could have like their own crowd, but mixed individuals is not always white and black. It's just like mixed. It could be a bunch of different things that could kind of mix up in there.
I mean, I would argue Obama would be one of them, right? They called him yellow belly.
Take your Israeli family
during his first
and
first presidency.
home.
So
yeah, well, and I think what I would say too, in addition to everything here, and I just kind of like a personal statement would be like, I also too like try to go out of my way to avoid any kind of like personal hatred of any individual just because like they're black, and not in any sense or shape or form, just because on site. Because I think about it on the sense of like, Jamar may be like Jamar, and he's just kind of like, he is who he is, but at the same time, it's like, this is not the guy who like jumped me outside of Planet Fitness. This is not the guy who's pushing these people into my country, and so it's kind of like, do you hold them for the sins of their countrymen? I will avoid that. I try to not to attach the group identity to the individual, but at the same time,
I just don't go out of my way to do it. I quit. It's not worth it, dude. It's too much effort. Why should I put that forth that effort?
Well,
To be
for
honest
me,
with you,
it's
I
one
mean,
of those.
if you approach me and you want to have a conversation, that's a different question. But it's like,
Yeah.
you know, when you never mind.
No,
We'll
say
save that
it.
one for a later stream.
Say it. No, I mean,
No, it's just you know, why should I have to change my life because you and your countrymen, one that shouldn't be here, can't respect themselves, society, the country, me enough to have a little bit of consequence of action thought, right? If we're stuck in this 15-minute loop that the future doesn't exist, the vast majority of them do. It's like, you know, I'm gonna hedge my bet on, yeah, they're probably most likely the same.
Yeah.
I mean, unless they're wearing, obviously, if they're wearing, there was this big push like a couple of weeks ago on blacks to start wearing quarter zips instead of shiesties. It's like,
yeah.
they get it, they understand it, they know, and then nothing comes of it. Nothing actually changes.
Yeah. Well, I guess maybe the better way to frame it would be I don't go out of my way to hate some random black dude, I guess.
Yeah,
is like
yeah,
the way
yeah.
I would say it. Because at the same time, you know,
Fair.
because I grew up in the boonies. You know what I mean? So like I majority white, but I did grow up with a lot of black people. And the black people that I grew up with are the only black people I like because you know, I grew up with them. They had to actually assimilate because they were very few. There was like a 90 to a 10% kind of community. So it was like they didn't have the whole tribe to kind of lean back on. They actually had to capitulate with the society around them. And again, it goes down to behavior, right? It's not the color of their skin; it's the way they act.
Yeah, and let me, I guess, kind of lay this out. You know, I mean, if somebody walks over to me and wants to have a cordial conversation, I have no issue with that. I have no issue with going and helping somebody out that needs help that has a different skin color than me. Like that's not the issue, really. It's just it's a I can only gauge a person by the information that I've been given. If I've never met them,
Yep.
then they go in the group that they belong, and I can only judge them on the group that they belong. Well, because that saves lives, and so we can go from there, and then we can work our way back. There's no issue from that.
Right. And we did get a super chat from I think he said Eric again. He says, I'm half Japanese, half German. I lost that war twice, but I can relate to anyone who holds the principles of our founding fathers. And this kind of thing is.
I will say, I mean, the hard East Asians, like the Japanese, the Koreans, they do a much better job of integrating into America, or the European lifestyle. I guess we were so fascist in another life, but
Yeah.
they obviously do. I think that's undeniable. So
they actually touched on this in the episode. I don't have the clip here, but part of the theories that actually kind of surmise what you're talking about, like what creates this relativity in like the race relations, like why does it seem that white and Asians have a close relationship, and then like blacks and Mexicans have a close relationship, and it is because of the winter and summer difference. Actually, this is kind of one of the leading theories. Whereas those who were in the winter time had to plan ahead, because you won't survive winter if you don't plan ahead. In the summertime, in the summer nations where you don't have to prepare for winter, there's you can hunt anytime. There's never really any periods where you have to plan out for extended periods of time. And so like what you were saying, in these East Asian cultures, that a lot of them actually extend north too. And so there would have been a lot of Asian cultures, the Asiatic, I guess you would say, that would have had to prepare for winter, which kind of leads to this sense of that's why there seems to be more shared unison across the northern hemisphere than there is. Same thing with the southern hemisphere. It's the winter and summer differences, actually, which is kind of crazy. This goes back to Agartha, if you will.
Yeah, I've never come across that theory, but I'm trying to play it out in my head, and I mean, at least it loosely makes sense.
Right. This kind of idea, I guess you would say, of what goes to like the maintenance thing, and like not having a word for future, right? And what would you think? Maybe what would the first societies would have to think about the future for? And it would probably be like agriculture, right? That's where agriculture comes in as well too. Why can't you teach these Africans to sow seeds? And all these things kind of, at least to me, it makes a lot of sense. I think it is like the leading theory on like race relativity and race realism.
I mean, I mean, if I'm making a list of like top 100, it'd probably sit somewhere around 50. But sure,
Interesting.
sure. I mean, your argument there is for epigenetics and not purely genetics, which is something completely different.
Yeah, well,
which is a longer conversation.
So I guess it is a different conversation. I'm not a purist in either camp. I do think there's a mixture. I would side with the fact that I do think it's like 80 to 90% genetics with the, would you say the anecdotal, the experience also playing the extra 10% role.
So I was thinking about this earlier. Epigenetics just meaning that if you practice something over time, it will essentially overlay on the genetics itself, right? So if we have demon worship for centuries, then that those epigenetics are going to be passed on, though it's not actually genetic itself. Right. And I was thinking about that earlier because the science basically tells us now that God was right, that you should marry loosely outside of your tribe, but not a further tribe, meaning that you should marry not outside your tribe, within your tribe, but not some close relative. So anywhere from third to fourth cousin is the most optimal for offspring. And I was kind of thinking about that from an epigenetic aspect, and it just seems that not marrying further out allows for less introduction of new epigenetics into the system. Does that make sense?
It does make sense.
That's just a thought I had for like real quick today, so I don't know.
No, I agree with you. Well, and also because I think a lot of people are like they'll make epigenetic arguments over like because they ate shrimp for 800 years, and it's like I don't know how much like I get the protein argument, I get like the brain size argument, but at the same time, like I think that's a bit of a stretch to also say like these people ate fish and that's why they're dumb. Like to me, it's a harder sell on that. The geology one makes a lot more sense because that's talking like whole seasonal kind of changes, like having to completely uproot and change how you're living for like a 3 or 4 or 5 months, depending on I guess where you're at. The geology argument I makes more sense to me.
Yeah.
But I guess moving on from this, I guess we can talk about. I guess we'll talk further about deportations. I guess the clip I want to go to here, some of this pushback that Nick was getting about from this accelerationist argument, and I think quote it says, "But Nick, if the Democrats win, nobody will be deported." Let's go ahead and play this one.
Go for it.
Losing at everything that comes with it. If we get a blue sweep in 28 that includes mass amnesty, what's the game plan for the right wing getting back in power after 30 million illegals are now citizens that can vote?
That is so fucking funny, bro. We have a mass amnesty. What do you think we have? If we're not getting mass but I love that. But if the Democrats win, then no one's getting deported. Right. If the Democrats get in, if there's a blue sweep, then no illegals are going to get deported. What are we going to do then? Dude, no illegals are getting deported. What are you talking about? They're already not getting deported. And that's not even true. Democrats are not going to give all of them citizenship. You need Congress to do that. That's never going to happen. Nice try, though. Fucking idiot.
Few and Confine sent $20.
I love that. You fuck you, people.
Few and
Fuck
Confine
you. You want to vote Republican? Fuck you. Go and vote Republican. I'm not going to argue with you.
Few and Confine sent $20.
You want to keep vote. It's always like you make the case so clear and people go, but if the Democrats win, okay, man, you want to go and be the slave to the GOP? Fuck you. I'm not arguing with you. Do it. I'm telling you, I won't put up with it. I'm not telling you to put up with it. You want to go and get cucked anyway? That's your prerogative. But otherwise, no one will get deported. Hey, fucking idiot. No one is getting deported. Stupid. This has all been happening. Reagan gave the amnesty that turned California blue. Hello. But the Democrats. Who do you think's bringing in H-1Bs? Chinese students. Who wants to staple green cards to diplomas? Who said they're not doing job site raids? They won't raid a job site with more than 50 employees now. And they can't do patrols and they're putting body cams on. What's the game? What if the Democrats win? Then it's a mass amnesty. Guess what? If you don't deport them, it's like they get an amnesty anyway. That's just like, talk about delusional. It's just totally insane. They won't deport them in 28 either. Stupid.
You're cracking me up. I can hear you laughing. Off screen.
Cortisol maxing much. Nick's
Right.
over here cortisol maxing on the super chatters.
Well, the funny part was he almost let it go, but he couldn't. He was like, I got to come back. I got to rip a little
He had
bit
to
more.
come back 4 times.
Yeah.
He had to come back 4 times.
I know. I thought it was funny too.
Oh, man. I mean, we touched on this in our debate the other day a little bit.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, you know, I loosely agree with him here. I do think it is a little bit of a dodge, though, right? The issue isn't the more deportations, right? You know, I agree that the deportation numbers aren't there. They're not going to be there. I do agree that, you know, you can't grant mass amnesty without Congress, though. You know, does it even matter at this point if the deportations don't come?
Yeah.
And they're still able to vote and get welfare and whatever else? I mean, they're essentially citizens. But I will say the dodge here isn't the non-deportation. The dodge is the border is relatively secure, and so the introduction of another 15 minimum, if not 30 to 35 million, is a major issue for the vast majority of Americans that just can't afford to live in a place that looks like America. So
that to me is a bit of a moot point because, and I think Doomernet is the person I saw kind of break this down in the best way. Like if you take the boomers out of the white population, you look at birthing rates, it's like it's almost like it doesn't even matter. I think part of the, you know, Doomernet also, I think is a bit of a doomer on it.
What doesn't matter?
Well, to me, I would have just
The numbers.
Like if they got like say another 10 million comes in the next 4 years, like okay, now we went from 70 to 80 illegal immigrants, but the birthing rates of nons is like 3.3 and the birthing rates of whites is like 1.6. Like even if we don't get the deportations, even if the border is secure, it's still a ticking time bomb. You know what I mean? It's like the whites are getting replaced. It's just like a matter of will it happen in 20 years or 5?
Yeah, but I mean, I think 10 is an absolute understatement. I mean, 10 would come in the first year of a Kamala presidency, right? If Joe Biden's doing 21 and 4, I mean, the next presidency would easily come close to doubling that.
Well, in this part of the thing
And so,
too,
and so that's the difference between 70 and 100 on paper, though
Right.
though it would probably be more like 150 and 2.
well, the thing is like, do you like how the number just went up? It was like 10 and it might be 20. I mean, I think for most people, I think that the estimation is like it's got to be anywhere from at least 40 to 50 came in those 4 years. I think 10 coming in
Yeah, I
1
think
year.
that's conservative.
Yeah, right. So I guess to me, I just find it like negligible between will they outbreed us in 20 years or like will they finish it off in like 5, which is a bit depressing to kind of look at there. I guess to zoom out a little bit though, like what are your what do you think will happen with the deportation? Like percent chance of ever happening at this point?
I mean, if we touch 1 million, it'll be a miracle. But even if we do touch 1 million, like let's say we get 2 million. Now we have I think Nick mentioned we got 600,000 student visas coming in. Those student visas they're going to be overstayed. They're essentially citizens now. And then you got H-1Bs coming in. They're going to be overstayed. All visas are essentially overstayed. And then on top of that, you have I mean, just look at the stuff in Minneapolis with the Somalis. I mean, they're Americans. They're American citizens. So I mean, they're not even here on visa.
Right.
I mean, you're looking at Vivek in Ohio. You're looking at Byron Donalds in Florida. These are anchor babies that are taking #1 seats in states.
Right.
And so, what do we do?
Right. Well, this is, I mean, well, you know, not to get full back into it, but this is part of the reason why I'm like, I'm willing to do anything, right? Like let's just like do, you know, let's just do the opposite, just to say it's opposites day and Simon Says almost, because it feels like
Okay, Ari Shaffer, let's take the foot off the pedal for a second.
because
I'm just kidding.
Ari Shaffer is pretty funny though. You know,
You know
because
what I'm
I
referring
do.
to?
Well, I kind of feel like it is almost, it's really bleak. And how do you, And to me, the kind of way I'm visualizing it is the more that number upticks every year, whether it is with visas being given legal status for 40 years because they're not citizens, but it's like they have forever legal status. To me, it's like, who cares? Like the non's in my country, right? I don't care what little tag you put them. I do find there to be a certain degree of like, it's going to have to be exceptionally violent. Like when it gets to like hundreds of millions of illegals being here. For one, that kind of begs the question of like, what's even illegal at that point if they're the majority of the people here? But also, too, like how violent would that have to become if you're deporting that many people? Like it was already a tall task with like the 10 to 20. Now you go to like 40, 50, 60 beyond there. It's like now you're looking at a war. It's like there's not going to be deportations. It's going to be governmental about it. It'll be quite frankly like it'll take the form of like a war, a very chaotic kind of like civil conflict.
Absolutely. And I would say this before, I'll say it again. I think the most people that advocate for this don't actually understand the level of violence that's going to come with it.
Right.
From both sides.
Right. And you think and just think about that like the very base, like the very like obvious we knew coming into this the media was going to take the first instance they could with deportations or whatever kind of ICE or Border Patrol is going to do. They were going to lambast it, broadcast it to, 24/7. Israeli Channel 13 even has it. And it's going to be, the worst thing ever is the way they touched this Mexican dad, even though he's illegal and committed 40 crimes and whatnot. And so to think that they packed it in after 250 or whatever it was, I don't believe the self-deportation numbers as far as I can throw.
I think they hit 380. I think they hit 380.
Yeah, 380. And it's not even just the fact that the administration caved, but when you look at the reactions across the board from people who are supposedly right-wing, you're also going like, well, how much further do we have to go? That's when I'm kind of looking at the cultural element and exactly what you're saying. A lot of these people were cheering on for mass deportations, but the moment the rubber hit the road and they saw what it was going to actually require to get them out of here, they're like, hold on, wait, don't do that. But at a certain point, you have to take your own side. And I guess maybe me and you were the only ones that was like, well, it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be fun. Like we're going to see them getting yanked. These people are going to resist. Of course they will. But to think that many people in the conservative space like didn't have that foresight to imagine the direction it's going to take is also just disappointing. Which is why I think the culture in the right side, the conservative side, needs to be a lot more fascistic. How do we get the right side to be a lot more fascistic, angry, taking their own side? And I guess that's kind of the question I'm trying to answer.
They're retarded. That's your answer. You're for all of the questions you just asked. They're retarded. They're retarded. I mean, people don't like like we use the NPC meme a lot. Mm-hmm. What it boils down to is they lack a time logic aspect to it. Second thought logic. Second order logic, where they can't apply time to it, and so okay, let's just deport people. It just doesn't work like that. And
you rotate an apple in your head?
Everybody, do I now?
Can you rotate an apple in your head?
Yeah, no. I mean, truly. Yeah. And so that's what we're left with is just a bunch of retards.
Right. Exactly. And
yeah, obviously the people that risk their life to come to America because they could live a better life and make yours worse is going to risk their life in staying here. Like this isn't extreme metaphysics that we're trying to go through here.
Right. But you nailed it on the head. I mean, people who just lack secondary level thinking, they can see, I can say yes to this, but they can't even visualize the consequences of that choice. They have to get there first before they can start to visualize it, which is unfortunate because, maybe it should be expected, but to have so many leaders in the conservative space all do the same thing. And it's made worse by the fact that Joe Rogan and people like Andrew Scholes, immediately, they're clutching their pearls. They're showing everyone how gay and homosexual they are. And it's like, okay, that didn't really help because now this is kind of too big dogs.
It's almost like it's an op, Atlas.
Right.
Right. If I didn't know any better.
Well, the Andrew Scholes thing to me, it was very performative. I can't remember what clip I came across.
No.
It was over the top performative. And it was almost like he was waiting for it. He was waiting to take advantage of it.
They're performers, dude. They're performers.
Right.
All that being said, the inability for Donald Trump to deport the people that need to be deported is is taking deportations off the table entirely. I think this was the last stretch of a possibility to quote unquote save the country practically via deportations. And so, I don't think deportations are possible anymore. And I still do want an American America. So do the math.
So you're a civic nationalist now.
No, let's define American really quick. Like, all Americans are white, not all whites are American.
I just wanted to see your reaction when I asked. No, but
I'm a civic nationalist if all of the citizens of America are American.
Right.
So
what
sure.
is an American actually? let's answer
what is
that.
an American? You got time? I got a chalkboard over here if you're ready.
Yeah, right.
I would define an American the same way that Charlie Kirk defined himself as an American, someone that has heritage in America since probably 1620s. Per him, that all of his family fought in all of the wars: Revolutionary War, Civil War, World War I, II.
Yeah.
What else? What else did he say? So I'll allude to Charlie Kirk on what is an American.
Right.
Not how he defined it, how he identified himself as an American. I think these are two separate things.
Yeah. Well, I think it's probably a good spot to switch to a harder segue, and I'm sure you've been following attention to this, which is the media storm that surrounds Carrie Prejean Baller and the Religious Liberty Commission, and loosely. So I followed this pretty heavily actually because I'm the biggest simp on the market. No, I'm just kidding. I followed this because I can't stand Seth Dillon. Like if my number one op I think in this space is Seth Dillon, and I think it's just because of how smug he is. Like I cannot stand that guy. And he's so over the top with it too. Like now he's coming out and he's like, you know what? I'll finally say it. Gatekeeping's a good thing. It's like, dude, like that. You just want to like just want to punch him in the face. Not really, not literally. No, not at all. You don't want to be violent at all. But it's very irritating. And that's why I followed it, because it was Shabbos Kestenbaum. It was two rabbis I'd never heard of before, Seth Dillon and a few other individuals. Go ahead.
Was this in the same vein as the that hearing they had with Seth Dillon and whatever else that was, like 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, that's what this is all stemming from. Yeah, and so this was the she's standing up. She's a Catholic, Carrie Prejean Baller. I don't know where she came from or how she kind of got her start there. But maybe this to me, this is kind of the definition of hiding your power levels, is because no one even knows who you are. And then all of a sudden she's on the big stage and then she's lambasting it, right? She's laying it down and everyone's kind of like, whoa. And I think part of that's probably because she was doing a good job of hiding the power levels, but she basically pushes back on all of these ideas, which is, if you're anti-Zionist, which she lays out pretty well, which is, Catholics aren't Zionists, but she's trying to get an answer out of these rabbis and other individuals like Seth Dillon. So is anti-Zionism, if I'm not pro-Zionism, am I an anti-Semite? To which the rabbis all said yes. Seth Dillon kind of gave a weird workaround answer, and they were all kind of, referring to different positions. But the aftermath is that the lieutenant governor, Dan Patrick, I believe is his name, said that Carrie's off the board. So they have removed this woman off the board, supposedly. This is kind of like where the scenario is at now. Go ahead.
Utah Governor Cox was, I mentioned Charlie Kirk a second ago. Charlie Kirk was spearheading getting him removed from office. So,
interesting.
Put that on the list.
Interesting. Yeah,
like he was staunchly opposed, boisterously opposed to Cox being governor of Utah.
Interesting. The more you learn about the situation, the more it makes sense. But so with Carrie Prejean Baller, it's kind of in a weird status right now, or status, I should say, stasis, which is that she's rejecting the fact that they're trying to push her off the board. And she basically has said every moment since then, which is, I will only take this if Donald Trump himself pens it. So she's rejecting the kind of resignation from Dan Patrick, and she's saying Trump needs to sign this off. Ultimately, Nick finally did address this on his show, which people did want to ask him multiple times. And let me go ahead and find it here.
Yeah, I think it's more of a Catholic thing that I haven't followed it so much. Obviously, I've seen it because I'm on Twitter, but yeah.
Yeah, well, I have the clip here. I'm going to go ahead and pull it up right now. This is Nick responding to the overall situation.
So this is what happened. And it just goes to show, this is pretty amazing. You have a commission on religious freedom. And isn't that the subject of everything in this country? Do we have a First Amendment? Do we have freedom of speech? Do we have freedom of religion? You have a commission that is established on the basis, it's in the name, for religious freedom. And a Catholic woman, a Christian Catholic woman, is on the commission, and she is fundamentally asking a question about her religious liberty as a Catholic. As Christians, we actually are set against rabbinical Judaism and Zionism as a political ideology. That is not something that we support. The entire basis of our religion is that Jesus Christ is the promised Messiah in the Old Testament, something the Jews don't believe. One of the reasons the Jews do not believe this is because Jesus arrived promising a heavenly kingdom, not an earthly kingdom. Well, what's the relevance? The Jews, in defiance of God and having rejected their own Messiah, have established a country in Israel in preparation for what they think will be their worldly Messiah, who they think will bring them an earthly kingdom. Catholics cannot support this. By definition, our Messiah arrived, and his kingdom is not of this world. It's not going to be a Jewish state in Israel. As a matter of fact, it's not on earth at all. It's a church. It's a heavenly kingdom. It's in heaven. And the Messiah arrived. The king already arrived. The king of the Jews, the king of Israel, he was here 2,000 years ago. We're not waiting for him to come back when these people rebuild the third temple by killing millions of people or thousands of people. So it is actually our religious liberty to be able to say this. No, I'm not a Zionist. No, I don't support Israel. And no, I don't support the Talmud. I think that's heretical. And no, I don't support rabbinical Judaism. I don't support any of that. And for saying this, you're kicked off of the Religious Liberty Commission. It's a commission for religious liberty. If we as Catholics express our religion, you're kicked off that body. And so what rights do we have? Think about it this way. Jews go to college, and they're overrepresented by 2,000% in the highly selective schools. Jews go to college, and you have at the same time protests occurring about what is happening in Israel. And for the Jews, this is a civil rights violation. They literally have taken it to the Department of Justice and say that if Palestinians or pro-Palestine groups are hosting protests, the Jews say that's a civil rights violation. That's discrimination. That's anti-Semitism. If you support Palestine, our civil rights are being violated. And that is the basis of the hearing. So Jews cannot be critiqued. Israel cannot be protested. Nobody can talk about this religion. Nobody can oppose the religion. Nobody can oppose the country. Those are their rights as Jews. As Christians, we can't even disagree. We can't even speak our mind about these things, or else we get removed. Is that a civil rights violation for us? Is it a civil rights violation when we have to hear about Judeo-Christianity, Holocaustianity? We have to hear about all that. Is that a violation of our civil rights?
And I think one of the best points that he did make in this kind of longer spiel here over the overall situation is also like, where is J.D. Vance? Where is recent Catholic convert J.D. Vance on any of these issues? This would be a great position to take if you were wanting to take the mantle of some momentum going into the next couple of years. And so I hope we get some of that. And while I'm on J.D. Vance, I will add too, many people have pointed out his lack of postings since the Epstein files have been continuing in this latest cycle with the 3 million. But I would also add to that, pay attention to what he's also not saying, which is he's not like the rest of the Trump cabinet members also playing defense. He's basically just being hands off entirely. This is another thing you can kind of pay attention to in this pattern of behavior, which I do think at any moment now you're going to see this kind of J.D. Vance arc where he's going to probably take some momentum here. But I guess your thoughts on the situation.
I mean, yeah, it's really just shows you where the administration's at, to be honest with you. I mean, across the board. Have you watched the Tucker and Mike Huckabee interview yet?
I was going to pull that up next.
Okay, so we'll get to that. I mean, that kind of falls in line to exactly where we're at right now. I mean, the entire administration, not just the cabinet, but I mean, essentially every ambassador. I mean, we're completely occupied. It's not just the White House. It's not just Congress. It's not just Senate. It's everything.
Right. Exactly.
Anyone that can be accessed is controlled.
Right.
So,
and this is why I brought
it's just
up,
an extent. It's just a symptom of the problem more than maybe a problem itself, if you ask me.
Yeah, and I completely agree. Not only was this part of my argument with Chuck Mason, which was it's more than just the top-down element of the control, obviously the lobbying as well, but when they have such a grassroots from the bottom element, which is all the Christian Zionists and all the premillennial dispensationalists in their crowd too, this helps for a two-pronged attack, which is they have ground support and they also have money on the top as well too, which makes for a comprehensive kind of issue to take on. And you're spot on with, like, this is a huge statement on what the administration is and who they are, and you kind of compare this to how many times Trump has said, "I don't know if I'm going to make it into heaven." You got to ask yourself, is this him kind of like pleading out loud? Like he knows what he's doing, or at least in some sense. I also kind of find it sad as well too, or at least the whispers of a man who's controlled. Who knows, the quiet desperation, I guess, but no benefit of the doubt for Trump anymore, especially after everything that's happened. And I guess I would say the best thing with this is, though, Carrie has handled herself pretty well so far. I like a lot of what she said. I think the only kind of thing is, it's really kind of bogging down for most people, is that she came from the Candace crowd. So there's like these weird videos of her like cheering on Candace while Candace is playing on, and like whatever, you can have a difference of opinion there.
I mean, I will say, because you mentioned, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
You go ahead.
I thought you would. I will say, to the idea of hiding your power level, I think it's a lot easier for women to do that in these instances. I don't know if a man would even be able to do to be in that position, if you will. But
yeah.
I'm perfectly willing to be corrected on that. I'd rather not be, but
yeah. Well, yeah, and I think that's another argument as well too. How well can you even hide your power levels, given the element of like the surveillance state and things like that too? I think that there is a good argument there to be made, which is how could you, if every message you ever sent that wasn't on like a end-to-end encrypted platform is like, you might be already boats already
yeah, I
sailed.
think they just gave her. I think they gave her the benefit of the doubt, man. I mean, the entire administration, they got a thing for blonde chicks. So
yeah. That is true.
Do whatever you want to, as long as you're some blonde chick. You can run the entire intelligence community. So.
Right. No, right. Exactly. And you had mentioned the Huckabee interview, which I think is it's a whole other kind of story in and of itself, but it does have relevancy here because Huckabee, I think, when did he run for president? Was that in the Romney? Was that in the Romney era?
2000.
Against Obama,
yeah.
Right? Pretty sure.
Yes.
Yeah, and what's crazy is
Obama too, I think.
But the second term. Yeah, and it was just how much Huckabee was touted as like he's the Christian, like he's the top Christian representative, like in this.
Mm-hmm.
But now you see him now, and it was like, well, he's a heretical Christian, like Zionist. It's like, yeah, is that was the top Christian that we could have put forward even back in like 2012, and it shows. I mean, this problem's been around for a hot minute, been around since essentially the beginning of the 1900s, if not a little bit before then. And that does beg the question too, how much actually needs to be culturally relevant? And I think this is part of the battle happening inside the culture war, maybe in a more niche kind of space, which is these kind of the Christian arguing occurring. But again, anybody even looks into it for even the slightest bit, you spend any time understanding like what's actually written, right? What's written in Genesis, breaking down the verses, understanding the language. I mean, it's such an easy thing to disprove and go, wow, like this is actually retarded. Like, how could anybody believe this? And that's on two ends, right? The dispensationalism is one thing, but I actually had a conversation with Dinder Whiffen. I'm probably going to say it wrong. I apologize, man. He's got a funny name. But this is also the premillennial versus the postmillennial. There's a lot also that kind of is wrapped up in this, that when you break it down, you find out there's actually multiple parts, more so than just the promise here, but also what goes to this idea of post and the pre, just inside of that, what it kind of prescribes as future action for Christians, how they should behave. Where the post mills are, they do have a forward action, they do have an answer of how they should carry themselves to future, building and progressing towards a more Christianized world. On the other end, the pre-mill is like this limp-wristed, don't do anything, basically do nothing, God's got it. This is where you're going to get all of these kind of very weak ideas, which is Christians should sit on their hands and essentially do nothing. When you break it down in that, you kind of can see a bit more of like what this full-blown heresy is. It's not just one way. And this goes to what you say all the time too. Like, people need to take and stop underestimating how much of this is pre-planned, how much of this is actually orchestrated, to a T, how much of this is actually thought through and developed over a long period of time. Because it wasn't just like a 100-year plan hatched in the late 1800s. This is stemming from thousands of years, from relations, from tribes that existed for thousands of years ago, that transmits itself into what we see today. And so to throw it out as like, it was like an edited Bible that plays a role into it, but it's also the whole nature of the beef between obviously Rome, Jews, all the other tribes, Gentiles. And I think it's imperative for Christians to actually learn that. I think it's imperative that, especially if you find yourself today really kind of recently understanding the phenomenon of Christian Zionism, I think you should implore you to get a stronger grasp on what Christianity is, get a stronger grasp of what these concepts are that you believe. Because again, if you believe these things, you should be able to explain your beliefs to somebody else. And if you find areas where you, not to say you have a full-blown mastery, but you should at least be able to explain it to like someone who, if they asked you what your beliefs were.
Yeah, I mean, that is the thing that kind of brought me around pretty heavily. I was reading The Case for Christian Nationalism from Stephen Wolfe, and that's kind of what woke me up. It was like, why are we sitting on our hands? Yeah, God may come back, but God also may coming back so many other times in history, and these people sat on their hands, and we shouldn't be doing that. We shouldn't be hoping on a prophecy that's not given the time nor the day. No man knows, right? And so if we're sitting on that, then we're literally giving it over to Satan to run. And so that's kind of where my shift came from. I don't know what, 5 or 6 years ago, heavily. Obviously, I've been relatively J-pilled for 20 years now, right. But made jump full force into it after that. So yeah, it is a big topic,
right? Well, it kind of hit me like in 22, and I don't know whose conversation it was. It's been so long, but I remember seeing the conversation between like, are you a post-mill or are you a pre-mill Christian? I remember thinking about that, and I was like, I have no idea what that even means. Like, what is post-mill? What is pre-mill at all? And then I sit here and you find yourself going like, I've been in church for this long, and something this foundational to the entirety of the belief, and like I'm just now like understanding. And I think for me, tinfoil hat put on, I immediately go to like, so is it being omitted on purpose? You immediately go to like, is this intentional? But I do think it just something of that nature, that big, of that scope and scale, should automatically send alarm bells ringing when you're like, wait a minute, I don't know what kind of Christian I am. Am I a post-mill or pre-mill? And why do I not even understand what these concepts are? I think for a lot of you, if you find yourself in that position, you should probably get a grasp on what those ideas and concepts are. But going to the Tuckabee clip, Josh put this clip in here and he said Tuckabee. I thought that was funny.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
This is one of the moments that we got from the interview that Tucker Carlson said he was detained at, but here it is.
To Genesis. Genesis 15 says it's Abram, it's pre-Abraham, it's Abram, receives from God the news that his descendants will inherit the land. And you tell me as the theologian if I'm getting this wrong, but from the Euphrates to the Nile. I think that's right. And that would include like basically the entire Middle East. That would be the Levant. So that would be Israel, Jordan, Syria, Lebanon. It would also be big parts of Saudi Arabia and Iraq. It would be,
I'm not sure it would go that far. I mean, it would be a big piece of land, but here's the point.
It would be a lot of places that are now countries.
But this particular area that we're talking about now, Israel, is is a land that God gave through Abraham to a people that he chose. It was a people, a place, and a purpose. We can look at it that way. Christian Zionism, I want to go back because that's where we started.
I'm not going to let you off on this because you have said it 3 times that God gave this land to this people. And so it is entirely fair for me with respect to ask, what land are you talking about? Because I just read Genesis 15, as I have many times. And that land, I think it says, from the Nile to the Euphrates, which is, once again, basically the entire Middle East. So God gave that land to his people, the Jews, or he didn't. You're saying he did. What does that mean? Does Israel have the right to that land? Because you're appealing to Genesis. You're saying that's the original deed.
It would be fine if they took it all.
Right. So I'll let you actually explain it. What was the tell here? What was the big moment there?
I mean, the finale. Threw it out there, dude.
Right.
It would be fine if they took it all.
Yes.
There has been some response from this interview and specifically that clip from the surrounding areas, Jordan, Qatar, whoever else, I can't remember who was on that list, but it was like 8 or 9 different countries, and you know, they took it serious, right? You know, we've been floating around for a long time. I mean, you know, us in this space, the idea of Greater Israel, that is their inevitable plan. That's where they're headed. That's where they're going. I don't even know if they deny that at this point, but
right.
He just comes out and says it, dude. I mean, imagine being Tucker Carlson and getting the ambassador to Israel to admit that the Greater Israel plan that Bibi Netanyahu has been cited doing, or has been imaged doing literal
like game planning for
PowerPoint presentations on, game planning on. It's like, finally, are we here? Are we? Can we at least talk about it now?
Right. And so the Greater Israel Project, obviously, exactly as Tucker described, is this kind of greater claim to the land. And if you just follow the history of Israel, this is what they've been doing the entire time. Most of their military conquests have been specifically to garner larger reaches of land. This is what it describes like the Yom Kippur War, and when they destroyed the airfields of both Syria and Egypt, you know, ultimately to land grab. And this actually goes back into what their propaganda is as well, too, which is, it's not territory, it's terror.
Take your Israeli family and go
This is
home.
what was like the handbook given out for them to spread their Hasbara, which this idea is you have to, if for this military conquest to be successful, we have to obfuscate the actual true aims of this. So instead of saying we're here for territory dispute, which is something people would actually look into, and they would say, wait a minute, Israel took this land, these people, et cetera, turn it to terror. Not territory, terror. And so that's why the argument from everyone else is because all the rest of the Middle East wants to attack Israel. They all have it out for them. They want to attack them and murder them. They have it out for the Jews. And that's been part of the propaganda wing. When in reality, Mike Huckabee says it right there, their aim has been the Greater Israel Project. And the majority of what they have been trying to do, if you look at like the Clean Break Report, everything going to like the 7 countries, it has all been an attempt to destabilize all the other kind of powerful nations in the region in their conquest to garner Greater Israel. And they're doing it in different ways. Regime change to get friendlier or Israel-friendly power in different regimes and administrations, but very specifically because they believe they do have a claim to the Greater Israel. And they have patches for it too. These patches went viral, I believe, months ago, where it's just like, I think the IDF just has it right on their shoulder, the Greater Israel Project. Now, I don't say that, but you can just tell by the landmass in the patch that it clearly is bigger than what Israel proper is right now. And what a crazy find from Tucker, if you will, to get that from Huckabee.
Yeah, crazy find from Tucker. And you mentioned earlier, before the clip, kind of how he got arrested, detained at the airport or whatever.
Yeah.
He gave a rundown at the beginning of that full video. Have you watched it?
No.
So I guess to try and keep this short, he basically says that he was never really detained. They tried to, they had a bunch of issues going on with trying to clear everything with their airplane with Israeli military, and the Israeli military didn't want to clear it. There's a bunch of back and forth with that, and so they finally did that, which obviously throws red flags.
Yeah.
Don't want to shoot Tucker Carlson out of the sky, but.
Right.
And so they were going to do the interview somewhere like at the embassy or somewhere, and then it turns out that they were like, no, we can't do that, blah 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 blah. And it basically boiled down to they had to do the interview in a diplomatic room at the airport, and so Tucker Carlson never left the airport, technically never even entered Israel, and so they were released after that. But there's some IDF guys that took in his producer, or both of his producers, or security and a producer.
Yeah.
And they were essentially asking them insane questions, not relevant questions to what was actually going on. But, what's your background? What do you pose? What are your political positioning? What was talked about in the interview? Was there anything like they don't already have that on camera themselves? But the producer was stuck in there for like an additional period of time, whatever that was. Tucker Carlson was like, no, I can't leave. I'm not going to go jump on the airplane and wait on him. I'm going to stand here and wait on him. And apparently that happened a few times. And so they just wanted Tucker Carlson to leave with a security and leave the producer behind. And so that's kind of where the back and forth was going, and the accusation of the IDF had arrested him or whatever. So
because I had read the Daily Mail exclusive, so they had like the exclusive. I read it like an hour after it dropped, and the part that stuck out to me was how the U.S. State Department got involved. They were getting involved on Tucker's behalf to avoid, quote, a diplomatic incident from Daily Mail. And then the other part that did stick out to me too was not the fact that, well, obviously he never left the airport. That was kind of odd, but it was the fact that they had that down to the minutes. And they had like the geographical time. They were like tracking him. They could find that, they were tracking Tucker, and they found out he never left the airport. And it's like, who's tracking him? Why is he being tracked in Israel? Like, I'm just like thinking those questions as well too. And I know everybody probably has already seen the video that came out too, that like shows him like taking a photo and whatnot. So I think it was played up in an attempt to almost kind of give Tucker bad publicity, if you were asking me.
Yeah, I covered it really briefly. I intentionally mentioned that I'm not going to cover this. I'll mention what is claimed right now. I'm not going to cover it. It just because it didn't make sense, right? And so if something doesn't make sense, I'm not going to run with it because it doesn't make sense, right? And so that's kind of where we end up. But yeah, I mean, absolute bangers out of this entire, was it like 2-hour interview? I mean, Mike Huckabee on his back feet the entire time, dodging, duck, dip, diving, dodging all of Tucker's questions.
Right.
I mean, there was a couple moments in there, I would have liked to seen Tucker go a little bit harder, but given the situation, dude, I think Tucker did a good job. And I think most people in this chat, if not everybody, knows my position on Tucker, and
right.
I think he's a Fed, so
right. Yeah, I think at the bare minimum, he's some level of containment. You were asking me, but at the same time though, like he did do a phenomenal job, and I think the other moment that I would have put in here that I think would have been also good to see was specifically talking about the Bibi Netanyahu's ancestry and the line of questioning, talking about the Eastern European, how much claim do they have to the lineal descent? Because everything obviously is going from Israel, the promised Israel. So then the next logical step is, are the people there actually those who are mentioned, in the text? And it kind of pushes a little bit on the Khazarian theory, where did the Ashkenazim come from? And these are all really good things because these are obviously conversations that were, you would get deleted for had they happened like 3 years ago. And it's not even, it's crazy, not only that they're just not happening just on YouTube in general, but that it's happening between Tucker Carlson and the U.S. ambassador to Israel. It was almost like in a matter of a year, it went from hush-hush to, Tucker's going to use this against the guy who's actually physically there on the ground, which is kind of a, I wouldn't have expected to see such a jump like that. But I think that also kind of tells you how much people are paying attention to this. And I think, again, going back to what I've been saying too, like, Israel and this kind of just the JQ has left containment, but not only left containment, it has become like an umbrella issue. It is like the number one thing in addition to like the Epstein files being talked about right now. And I know you said they're one and the same, and I'd agree with you. But again, I think it's the uniting element. It's kind of wild that the left and the right both agree on it.
Well, you mentioned the Bibi Netanyahu ancestry that came up, and then there was a pivot from Huckabee into no, not genetic, not Abraham's genetic lineage, but his spiritual lineage, and which brings another theological issue up for him, and it's not even a better situation. So it's like, do the Jews worship the same God? At the core is the question. The answer is obviously no. And I think somewhere in there, maybe it was this interview, maybe I was watching something else where someone was mentioning rabbinical Judaism, and the response was, what's the difference between rabbinical Judaism and Judaism?
That's crazy. That's crazy. But it goes right at
one's just more Jew. One's just rabbinical Judaism is more Jewish than Judaism is,
because it's accurate. It's funny because it's so accurate. But we did just hit the 2 hour mark. Kind of will bring us to the end of where we were at with everything Nick related today. Really didn't miss any kind of concepts in there. If anything, the only kind of big one we really didn't touch upon would have been the Iran war. And that obviously, it's just right around the corner. I think Kirikow says expect it Monday or Tuesday. I think that's like the last thing that he said about it. They're ready to go this Saturday, or I guess today. We're obviously not seeing anything of that right now. But Kirikow, the former CIA agent or contractor? I always forget.
I think he's an agent, former agent.
Interesting. But he's the one that says he believes that it's going to be coming Monday or Tuesday. And I think that obviously will reset the news cycle.
Supposedly the White House has pushed something on that. Let me see if I can find it real quick. This is from Dory, the guy that did the interview with John Kirkuru. He said, John and I put out this clip ahead of time because we both hope the White House reconsiders this decision. No more endless wars in the Middle East. Okay, never mind. They didn't. I thought they did. Apologies.
Interesting. So maybe they floated that knowing like, hey, we have some inside information. Please don't do this. I'm getting it out ahead of time, I guess. But yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think for everybody, obviously stay safe. Expect some chaos coming here. Again, just to kind of be, off the top, this whole idea of the Iran war and the idea of like what that would be if Iran does respond in full. And I think at this point, I think Iran does probably feel threatened to its own existence. And it's not going to look good. It's not going to be good. It's not going to be easy, I guess I should say. And when you just think about the numbers they've already floated out there, right? Like Robert Barnes, I think, Health Ranger as well, talking about expect 10,000 American soldier casualties in like the first couple of weeks. And then there's also this idea that what if there's another false
flag? Have they said that? Have they floated that?
Robert Barnes did. Yeah, and then it was picked up by Health Ranger. And then let me add this too. I double checked to figure out where Robert Barnes was pulling this from. I felt like it came out of like thin air. So
yeah, that's no. That's just not going to happen.
And
the numbers on like the 20-year war in Afghanistan and Iraq are like not even those numbers.
Yeah, I think it's just over a few thousand, like a couple thousand.
Yeah, so I don't know where they're pulling 10 out of their ass.
Unsure. I mean, I know like the average naval aircraft carrier is like anywhere from like 5,500 to like 7,000 staffed and armed individuals. So I think maybe in their calculations, it's like if something happens to one of those, you're already at that number. But again, I'm not an expert on the strategy of the military or anything like that.
Listen, I'm not advocating for boots on ground. Not even close. I'm not advocating for a strike. But to think that American lives, anything north of like 100 in the first couple months is delusional. I think it's absolutely insane, especially if we're not doing like full on Fallujah, house to house, street to street, door to door. You're not going to lose American lives. Like the might of the American military is by people like this are just so they undermine the American military so much. Like they want to raise hell all the time about how much we spend on the American military, the military industrial complex, and then when it comes down to it, and we're about to start a war, they're like, "Oh, the Americans suck." I mean, we suck, but it's like, no. I mean, we could take on probably 3 worlds, if we needed to take on a full on war. I mean, it's not even like a second thought. It's not a thought, and it's not a second thought that America would lose a world war right now with literally the rest of the world by themselves. It's just from just a military might perspective. Obviously, there's a lot more that goes into play there. But
well, I guess my question then after that would be, given the fact that we know the administration is going to throw literally everything, there's no they're shameless at this point, and what if they want a full send a regime change? And they want to establish it in the timeline of a Trump presidency. And with that occurring, in like 2.5 years, whatnot, say like they're speeding up their schedule, you think like that would open it up for more American casualties? If they're rushing operations, if they're putting a lot of people on the ground to just kind of overwhelm, do things that's kind of unprecedented for the American military. Do you think that would open itself up to having more casualties if they're on a sped up timeline?
Sure, but it'll be minimal, man. Yeah, I think. When we talk about casualties, we talk about like actual deaths, and we look at the death toll of the other desert wars. They're not high at all. But the issues that come from the desert wars were more psychological than anything else, and so. I think the casualties would be extremely minimal. I mean, our on-field like medical situation, unless like we can essentially save anyone that's not anyone that's not Charlie Kirk, right? Charlie Kirk was dead immediately. If they're not dead immediately, you're not going to die. And so the extension of that is very minimal casualties, though people will come home broken, whether that is physically or mentally. Even if it is rushed. I mean, even a rushed war. I mean, I think right now they got like 10 carriers sitting off the coast of in the Red Sea, in the Suez Canal, and over in the Mediterranean. It's like
in the British Indian
just
Ocean
release
as
it,
well.
dude.
Like what is it?
There's nothing anyone can do to stop it. I mean, the Iron Dome wouldn't be able to stop the American military.
Yeah, I guess I also too. What's your percent chance on Iran dropping a nuke?
A nuke?
Yeah, or some kind of like nuclear tipped or enriched. Well, I think they're what is it, like 65? Right? Wasn't it the highest they ended up getting to? They had a little bit over 65.
Supposedly. I don't even know if I believe that shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Who told me that? BB told me.
Right. Yeah. Like, right. That too.
I mean, Iran's gonna have to respond. I wouldn't be surprised if they don't like. I mean, obviously they'll send some missiles to Israel, but I wouldn't be surprised if they called up Putin or someone over there and tried to pull some strings behind the door. I mean, obviously Putin, the KGB, Russia, their intel they have spies in America and probably Israel also. So I mean, they play games at this level, but at the end of the day, I mean, I think they're all largely, maybe not entirely in on it, but it is more of a game to them than anything else.
Yeah, we could expect it soon. Right, expect it in the next week, I would imagine. I guess we'll see how that plays out.
Yeah, they said Monday or Tuesday, so
yeah, tomorrow even. Maybe we'll get an early strike. But with that kind of brings us to the end of the. It brings us to the end of the Groyper report. Anything else you want to say, Zeb, while you're here? I know you're not here often. So.
Yeah, Nick's great, dude. I love Nick. I'm so glad I could be on with the Groyper report and be Groypering with you. I just love Groypering so much, dude. It's the best thing. It's the best.
Well, it's funny. Go ahead, my bad. I don't want to interrupt you.
Good. No, I'm done. I was just gonna tell Chat to send us money.
Yeah, send money, Chat, please.
Support Nav.
Yeah, support NAV or Nav. I always say NAV. Maybe we should just say Nav. But I was just going to say, understand the stress it put me under to select the most non-Groypy clips out of the bunch that came out this week, so me and you could have more of a conversation.
I try to be fair, man. I try to be fair. Obviously, I have my positions, but to some extent, we are entertainers, and I'm not gonna sabotage the entire show.
No, I get
because me and Nick disagree on. I guess some of it I believe is fundamental, but
yeah. No, and this is what NAV is for.
Someday in the past, I used to call myself a Groyper. Probably not, but I was, I watched Nick a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would say ultimately, I think the goal is that you don't. I mean, if you're following the advice of Nick and Clav, the goal is to ascend. At a certain point, you probably shouldn't be calling yourself a Groyper anymore. Not in the sense that you don't support Nick, but in the sense that you yourself are an entity that people look at. Whether you're a community pillar or you actually want to do something, in a bit more of the public space. The goal is to ascend.
Thanks, dude.
Yeah. Looks maxing, brain maxing, Christ maxing. Am I missing something? That's really all you need anyways. Pro-white maxing. I think it might. Is that all of them?
Mass maxing. I'm going to run with that one. Let's go with mass maxing.
Mass maxing. I like that.
Just get big as possible. Big and strong as possible.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, Christ is King. This has been another edition, episode 15 of the Groyper Report. We're going strong. Support NAV. I saw we went over 2,000 subs. We went underneath 2,000 subs. I'm assuming that person's an illegal. They probably got deported. That's probably why they're missing from the count now. Hopefully. But with that, deport Cash Patel.
Okay, let's go, dude.
Yeah, right? Deport Pam
Shout out us.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Top dog. You're good, dude. This is Zeb's natural way of sabotaging me, actually. He's doing it on purpose. You could see him. But no, everybody have a good rest of your night. We appreciate seeing and hearing from you guys, and we will catch you guys next time. And tune in to Zeb Show on Monday. It'll be the first thing you'll probably see this week. And we'll see you next time. Take care.
Where do you stand politically? Give us your political ideology.
Okay, I can say anything I want.
Yeah, bro. Say Rumble.
I don't know, the day-to-day stuff, I'm like, yeah, more bullshit. Another white girl got stabbed to death? Of course she did. What do you expect? For my politics, I just watch America First with Nick Fuentes.
Okay.
I consider myself a Groyper. Sometimes I just wait to hear Nick's take to make sure I have the right take before I make videos, So, yeah, I just go with what Nick says. I just defer all my political opinions to Nick Fuentes at this point. I'm America First. I wish that we had white Christian men running the country. It's unbelievable to me that we have a government that has a policy other than America First. How does that make any sense? We pay taxes, use our taxes to benefit the country that we live in.